Welcome to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm with Marcelo. Marcelo, for everyone out there listening who might not know who you are, please introduce yourself.
Well, I am Marcelo Bratke. It's very nice to be here with you talking, Robbie. And I'm a concert pianist, conductor, TV and radio presenter.
You do a lot of stuff. Okay, which one do you want to talk about first? Because the pianist thing sounds pretty. I've heard some of your stuff. Let me tell you, my favorite ones are the ones. I don't know who the guy is that plays violin, but when you guys are together, that's what I really enjoy. I don't listen to a whole lot of music. I mostly listen to podcasts and starting my own. I like to listen to a lot of historical stuff, but I find that I'm probably one of the few of the younger generation, I would say, that listens to more classical music than I do probably more modern day stuff, only because
Yes.
once you can take it in, you really notice. Especially, I tried playing piano. I played in a band for a little while. I can really appreciate all the work that goes into it, which I don't think a lot of people, they just kind of hear it. They don't really do it.
Yeah, it's true. People think that we just sit in the piano and get inspired and everything happens at once without any practicing. But let me tell you that, as you know, many composers said before, it's 100% inspiration, 99% transpiration, sweat.
Do you find it comes naturally, or do you find that you have to work extra hard to kind of train yourself to be able to play?
I need to work extra hard, but for me it's very natural because I began to play the piano by accident because I had a visual problem. I was born with two problems in my eyes, congenital cataract and amblyopia. And because of that, I had 2% vision in my right eye and 7% vision in my left eye since I was born. And I just made a surgery when I was 44 years old and solved the problem in one of my eyes. Now I had in my left 100% vision and in my right 10% vision. So I was absolutely, I was technically blind, but I didn't know that because my parents, they used to say, Marcello, you see well in one eye and very bad in the other one. But the good was 7% of a normal vision. So because there was no cure for me, no solution for me. And I found the piano by accident when my father was playing the piano. He was divorced from my mother. And one day I went to visit him. He had bought a piano to come back to practice some piano. And I fall in love with a Chopin prelude, which I took by ear immediately. In half an hour, I was playing that. And my father thought that was, very unusual. And that was how I began to play the piano. It was purely accidental. After 10 months of my first piano lesson, I was playing by ear because I could not see the score, of course. I was unable to visualize the score. I played with the São Paulo Symphony Orchestra, a concerto by Bach. And because of that, I won a prize from the Critics Association, the São Paulo Critics Association. And it was a revelation prize. And I felt so well. I thought, my life was going to be very glamorous from now on, becoming a pianist. I didn't know that I was going to pass through many, many, many obstacles and challenges and things like that. But here I am. I'm a concert pianist now.
Do you feel that it brings you a form of clarity? Because I mean, my whole family's music, I've never really followed down that route just because it seemed like it wasn't for me. But as I get older and I go to a lot more like concerts or gigs or something, I can really hear it more fine tuned. Like when I was a kid, used to play, I could never hear when to play. I would just do what they told me to do and I would play. But then as I've gotten older, I've started to hear like, oh, this is where you come in. Oh, this could add some bass or this could. And I don't know if I'm just appreciating it more or if I'm just getting older and my ears are developing it.
I think your ears are developing because the ear development is something that happens throughout your life. For example, if I play a sonata by Schubert today,
Hmm.
and if I revisit this Schubert sonata in 10 years' time, I'm going to hear that completely differently, you know. And as much as you go thinking about the sound, more and more the sound gets different to you, and it's easier for you to understand that, you know, the structure of it architecturally, you know. For example, I, because I had this visual problem, I was very limited in my life, no, although I didn't know, I didn't have the parameter of what it was to see normally. I remember that I was all the time listening to a little radio, shortwave radio. I used to, when I was 5, 6 years old, I was passing, you know, 3 hours, 4 hours a day listening to Radio America, the BBC, Radio Tokyo, Radio Moscow. I was listening to these voices, which I didn't understand because I spoke Portuguese. I didn't understand English or Russian or Japanese. Even today, I don't speak Japanese.
You
But
speak
for me,
English really well.
no, no, thank you so much. Is everything learned by ear? I never had a lesson. But for me, it was fascinating to see the world through sound. And I was addicted to countryside music from Brazil because of a caretaker of a little country house in the mountain of my grandfather. So I was singing these songs all the time, you know, back to the sounds, to the songs. And so music was inside of me. When I found this piano in the Saturday afternoon in my father's house, it was very easy to listen to the Chopin prelude, to put my hands on the keyboard, and to understand how that should go, you know. And so for me, it was all the time a question of listening before, imagining the sound, and then through my hands, my arms, my body, try to get the emotion of the sound. Music was always that. For me, music is not represented by what is written, because for me, even today, that I can see so well in my left eye, um, I don't remember, you know, visually the score. Sometimes I see a score of a piece I played in a concert 6 months ago. I don't recognize it. I take a long time. So, oh, this is the Bach Prelude number 2, which I played 2, 3 months ago. Oh, that's right. What I remember is something inside my brain to do with the form of emotion of the sound. That's it.
I think that develops as you get older, though. Like when you're a kid, you hear music and you kind of want to sing the lyrics to it because it's catchy. Especially when I was a kid, it was always about the catchy music. But then as I got older, and I think you start developing feelings, not really like developing like, oh, I know what this develop is love. No, more like you, like if you have like some maybe depression issues or something, music is something that brings you back to a base level as much as our environment does. Like I started noticing when I started appreciating music more was when I started getting older and dealing with anxiety and dealing with stress issues or dealing with something like that. I was like, oh, this song, like when you hear like a hardcore rock or metal song, it really like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Like I'm feeling something. I'm feeling like, I'm like angry. But then there's music when you're driving in your car and you're able to roll your window down. You just don't care. You just want to sing to the world. You want the world to know what you're feeling. You want them to feel the same exact thing. And that's when I started having more of appreciation of music. I was like, this is something that I took for granted when I was a kid. Oh, you can sing the words from an Eminem song or whatever you want. But when you start listening to like Kiss, when you start and then especially learning the history behind these hardcore rock bands or something like that, and you realize what they had to do to get to the position that they wanted to play. I started watching music documentaries. You just have an overall appreciation for something. And that's when when I took a music appreciation class, they pulled up an orchestra and it's like you see a bunch of people playing. I'm like, oh my God, like this is like, you understand how much practice this has to come to make sure every single person's in sync, just to be able to make sure that and it's all fluently played. Most of the time when you hear music like that, you don't tell if they mess up. And most of the time, if they do mess up, only they know. They don't.
Yeah, sometimes it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
This is crazy. You know, sometimes when I finish a concert, I come back home and I go back to the piano to see what did I do wrong, just to clean the wrong notes, you know, but just I know. Even the conductor, you know, doesn't know that. It's amazing. It's a very internal thing. But for me, it goes into these details. And it is fascinating to see how deep we can go into a piece of music and how much we can learn about that and recognize all the sides of the sounds and go deeply into this emotion, you know. But coming back to youth, when you are a child, I remember, of course, I didn't know the names of the things. I didn't have the vocabulary of the language, but the emotion was already there. And the emotion, I used to listen to kids' music, you know, like, the story of the big rat and things like that, and the cucaracha thing,
Mhm.
and the Beatles as well. The Beatles, I was born in the 60s, no? The Beatles were in the climax of their fame, and I used to sing with them, and the emotion was already there. The emotion didn't change. What it changed is the understanding of the shape of the sounds. How can we deal with this emotion? How can we, pass this emotion to people, to the public? How can we express ourselves? This is what I think we are able to develop. But the music is emotion since the when you are born, the day you die. I think is one of the most powerful tools of communication between people.
Do you feel when you play music or when you're playing like a concert or something in front of a lot of people, do you feel that you're trying to make people feel the way that you feel, or are you just trying to put your feelings out?
I think what I try to do when I play a concert, when I perform a concert, is to give the best of the music through me, not the best of me through music. You know what I mean? The difference between both?
Mhm.
I want to become the music so that the public can get the music as the music is, and the music is going to be, a common sense, something public, for the public really. It's not me anymore. It's not the public anymore. It's not even the composer. It's the music that is alive, that goes directly to the heart of the people, and doesn't belong to me, either to me or to the public. It belongs to everyone, to the world. That's what I want to pass on.
Have you found that when you listen to music, you only understand certain music when you're in a certain feeling? Like if I'm upset or I just had something happen that's like a tragedy, or if I'm feeling happy, I don't want to listen to a happy song when I'm feeling sad. I want to listen to a song that gets how I'm feeling. I feel like it helps you understand it more. And then like even with Beethoven, my thoughts with Beethoven go, what was he feeling when he wrote that? What was he feeling when he was playing it? What was that emotion? What was going on in his life?
Yes, I feel the same. And there is a connection between the interpreter, the listener, and the composer, of course. But let me tell you something which is very interesting. The filter of each one changes the perception of music. And of course, we are more or less in the same culture. You are in America, I am in Brazil, London. This is the Occidental world. But for example, if I show you an Eskimo music, which is a language from the Eskimos that you don't know, you're not familiar with, you're going to feel something completely different than an Eskimo person. The same thing if I show Beethoven to an Eskimo, the Eskimo is going to have a different feeling of what you have. So the music is the language of a culture. It's a precise language of a culture. It transcends this culture through emotion of sounds, but the meaning of the language is intelligible depending of where you were born, where you come from. And this first approach to music, you learn in the first years of your life. So this is very interesting. People say music is an universal language. It is, to a certain point, not not entirely, because it's a language like speaking English, speaking Portuguese, speaking German or Italian. You have a kind of a vocabulary that goes deeply into the meaning of the sentences that if you are from a certain culture, you understand differently from if you are from another one.
It's kind of like me trying to listen to European throat singing. I respect the craft, but when I'm listening to it, it's just a different culture where it's not like something that I'm going to want to play every like I'll interest myself in something new, sure. But I'm not going to want to blast it in my car when I'm driving down the street. It just wouldn't, there'd be people giving me the weirdest eyes. Like, why is that kid listening to European throat singing? I mean, it's interesting to watch, but there is a definitely, I guess I would say, a line when it comes to the language barrier that it can cross. There's feelings that it can invoke in everyone, but there's a point where it's like you're not going to get it if it hasn't been surrounded by you. Like try having a kid who's listened, and this works for music with generations as well too. Try having a younger kid that's listening to all the newer music, go back to the 80s or the 70s of like punk hair and all that type of stuff. They're not going to really understand it as well. But then if they get into this weird, like for me, my both my parents are radio people. Both my parents were DJs and all this, so I was very cultured when it came to older style music and everything. Kiss, Metallica, all these older style bands. Usually now, like when I'm listening to music, everyone's like, "Why aren't you listening to like this rapper?" I'm like, "I don't really listen to rap. It's not that I don't get it. I definitely get it." But it's just not my style of thing. Music has taken so many forms, like the one we're at now. Did you hear even my intro? My intro to my show is a robot. It's an AI created music. That's interesting, but it's also scary because it also changes this craft where you don't have someone creating music anymore. It's a machine or an algorithm doing so. And I feel like it's going to de-appreciate music, but then we're going to see in maybe 5, 10 years, you're going to have people really want the old style of music again. They want to go out to concerts. They want to go out to venues, not just someone hit a button.
Yeah, well, I think all comes as an interesting development. I'm not against robotic music, but I don't want to lose what has, we have been listening in the past. I think that if we don't look at our past, we're never going to get a future. So music has an advantage in this sense. You can, for example, I recorded an album now of Chopin, you know, which is a composer of 200 and something years. It's amazing. It's a miracle for me to be able today to think about those lines, those melodies, those harmonies, and to be able to express the music that was composed so many years ago. No, so it's something that goes beyond timing, and I think it represents all culture. Whatever happens in the future, I think it's part of the human development. If we go and we try to make a machine creating music, it's still a very interesting thing. And, things can be achieved in that way as well. I don't think it's going to substitute the way people can create music, because this uncertainty, this imperfection of our unstable brain and stable emotions are never going to be substituted by a robotic sense of logic. So I think we can live with both sides.
It's just with AI music, I mean, it's interesting. It's just I don't feel anything from it. Like when I listen to it, it's like, oh, it's either I like it or I don't, but I don't feel any emotions. And if you really look at music, for instance, it's always been able to invoke emotion because it's always been created by someone who is feeling something. Even in war, they would bang a drum and it would pump people up. It's a morale booster. They had a drummer boys. Everybody had a drum at some point to be able to play and hit and get their anger out, whatever.
It's true. I did that as well. Yeah.
It just it especially if you're in a group of people and you're just hitting something, like everyone I'm pretty sure taps on the table at some point. It's it's I don't know what that is. It's channeling something, but it really, especially if you're in a group, it really gets people like riled up in a sense. Like it has, like whenever I go to a concert and I hear a bass play or I hear drums play and I feel it rock the inside of my rib cage, that's just something different where I'm just like, I like this. Like I don't know what this is. It's like sitting in one of those recliners in the mall that have like a vibrating chair. It's like that basically.
It's like the vibration of other souls connecting to your soul, to your spirit, to your you know essence. Uh, there are some times that I experienced something very interesting. To be able to play with someone that I don't know, like I made a duet with the biggest pop singer in Brazil called Sandy, and she is a pop star in Brazil. And first time when we went to rehearse, we had a connection that was a miracle. You know, right? It was like if I would have been her friend for all my life, and she felt the same because musically we had a connection. And when you play drums, and I used to do that when I was a kid in the school with a lot of, imagine in Brazil with the samba, it's absolutely fantastic because you really put your spirit up and outside, and it goes and mixes with other people. And sometimes it's even stronger than language. You cannot express through language what sometimes you can express through sound.
Do you find that you've never like maybe there's one time you didn't have a connection with someone? Like when you're playing, do you ever feel like it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. I felt people that I tried to make some duet, and I did, but it was very difficult because we didn't have that kind of connection. It was like a very intimacy level was not there. And I did it professionally because I needed to do. I did a concert, everything came okay, but it was not something that I would like to come back to.
Yeah, I mean, you can manage to play a concert with people that you might not connect with, but does the audience get the same thing as if everyone was together having the same amount of fun on the same exact level? Like that's a weird line too. Like I can tell, like my brother's in a band, and when I go see him play or something, I used to be in that band. He was like, "Is your head in it?" I was like, "Yeah." Like I can't focus on anything else. This is all I can. This is taking so much of my thought right now to be able to know what inch, like where to put my hands on the keyboard, all that type of stuff. And when I see him play and I'm just watching as an observer, I can tell like, oh, he's got a sore throat. Like I can tell that he's not going up to that note because he's got a sore throat, but no one else could know. But I was like, I have that connection with him because he is my family. So I know those types of things that you wouldn't be able to notice if you're just a casual viewer.
It's true, but I think the public gets the most of what happens really. Something interesting. Let me tell you, my one of my favorite pianists of all time was Arthur Rubinstein, a Polish pianist, who is the best pianist of playing Chopin. And he used to say, if I don't practice one day and I give a concert, I notice the difference. If I don't practice for 2 days and give a concert, my wife notices the difference. If I stay 3 days without practicing and go and give a concert, the public notice the difference. You know, so I think it's a whole you know level of energy that express itself for you and for all.
Have you ever stopped for a long time and then tried coming back to it?
No, no, never, because I'm physically dependent of the piano. First of all, I began to play the piano, became a pianist, and then I studied conducting. And then, mostly in the last years, I became, first of all, a radio presenter. And then, because of the pandemic, I began to do a lot of television stuff, television documentaries about composers, and trying to do that in a very contemporary way with a contemporary modern language, to be able to speak with young people and things like that. And this is a window that is opening in my life that is very interesting. And I fall in love with this new thing that I'm doing now. I'm launching now a new series of episodes at the Brazilian TV about composers, which is very interesting. It's called Musical Moment, and it's just a 2-minute episode about a composer in which I try to bring this composer, the persona of this composer, to our time, to present time. No? So, for example, I'm talking about Gershwin. I am dressed as a tennis player, explaining that he used to play tennis with Schoenberg, who was the most radical composer of all time. And they have nothing to do musically with each other because Gershwin was the introducer of jazz in classical music. And Schoenberg was the creator of the 12-tone technique, which is the most radical, noisy music ever created. But he liked it to play tennis. So I am, with the ball, with the racket, and speaking about that. Then I give a bunch in the ball and things, and then I begin to play. The scene changes, and you are in a concert hall. I am dressed as a pianist playing Gershwin as it should be. So I'm doing that in these small episodes that go into the television in between the publicity, the commercials. So you were watching a commercial of a bank, a publicity of a bank, and all of a sudden you see me cutting my hair in a Turkish barber shop, talking about the wig that Mozart used to wear, and then I play some Mozart. So we are doing this kind of reinventing the personality of the composer to bring the composers to our time.
Well,
And this
you're
is
you're
fun.
an educator. That's the thing, is like when you're able to spread and show people or give people advice, but you do it in a fun way in your style and your personality form, you soak it in better. I mean, I don't know how many times I would be practicing or playing and someone would come by who didn't really know what they were talking about. They just kind of went over there like, "Oh, you're playing a keyboard. Oh, if you do this and do that." I'm just like, "Oh, thanks." Like they didn't give you any advice at all, but it seemed like they did. They just that's how advice is given today. But when you actually have someone sit down and show you and talk to you and really kind of walk you through and give you their perspective on it, it's a different thing. And I think that's how you get people more cultured into something. That's how you get people interested in something. I don't know how many times I've heard musicians play. Like when you see musicians on the street, there's a lot of good musicians on the street. Toss them a quarter, toss them whatever. Even if it's a cent, not walking by them, you give them a cent, that incentivizes them that you listened. And that's something. Like, I mean, even if I see one on the street or something, I'll toss a quarter in, I'll do whatever. I won't just walk past, because that stops that person from wanting to go back out and go and pursue and do all these types of things. It's those little small things. When I go to like a gig or a concert or something at a local bar and I see someone just give a $5 bill, a dollar bill, whatever, in a tip bucket, that incentivizes them to go out there and do whatever, even if the general public just likes to walk past things. And I feel like that's what cuts off a lot of golden opportunities for someone to just to keep playing and really enjoy what they're doing.
It's amazing. It's true. Can I tell you something funny? I think this was done in the United States. I think it was in New York. They took one of the best violinists today in the world. I think it was Vengerov, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm mistaken. And they took him to make an experience, and they put him in a tube station, in a metro station, an underground station, playing the violin with the case of the violin open for people to drop coins. And he was playing at Carnegie Hall the day after that. People were paying $200 to go and attend his concert. But at the tube station, at the metro station, people were passing by and hardly giving any cent to him. It was amazing. They didn't recognize at all his talent. And you maybe find people in the street that are playing so well. Sometimes I really notice people that are so talented and they are still playing in the streets. It's amazing.
It's just crazy to see how disconnected a lot of people are just in their own heads. Like everyone that I know that would walk past, or everyone that you would really see that would walk past that person that was playing the violin in the middle of a subway station or something like that, they're listening to something. They have headphones in, whether it's a podcast or whether it's whatever. But if we haven't encountered it and we haven't kind of liked the first impression that it's given us, we don't stick with it. And that's the thing, is that most people that are listening to something when they're walking or they're going to their job or they're going grocery shopping, they're listening to the same thing that they've listened to before because they know they like it. There's never an experience to try something new, whether it's a new podcast, whether it's a new television show, whether it's a new station, whether it's whatever. And that's really, really strange for a society that is always creating something new.
Yeah. This is why, let me tell you, I am addicted to radio since I was born because of my visual problem. But today it's a miracle. I have in my mobile phone many stations around the world that I still listening to, like Rete Due in Lugano in Switzerland. The one there is one about jazz in New York, which is very interesting. I think it's Claridge Radio. There is NWYC or something like that in New York as well that I listen to. I listen to Swedish radio stations, Greek radio stations, Cuban radio stations, Japanese radio stations, because I want to get surprised by something that I don't know, you know. I don't really, it's not my kind of adventure in music to listen into things that I really know. I like to really be bumped into something that for me is a surprise. So I listen to a lot of Indian music from Calcutta, from New Delhi, from Pakistan, you know, because in a way, I'm discovering something new. For me, this is fascinating to be able, you know, sometimes I'm practicing the piano with the radio on.
Are you trying to
It's
play the
amazing.
songs?
No. I'm practicing Beethoven, but I have, you know, those voices. I like very much to listen to the voice of the people as well, not only
Oh, I
music,
can't do
but
that, dude.
may
I
they
got
may,
I got
may
such bad ADHD. I'll be so thrown off.
no, I love that. I love, you know, the weather broadcasts and then talking and talking and you know the accents of the people, the languages, different languages going on, you know, some poetry done on the radio. So I listen into those things even when I'm playing the piano because you know when I'm practicing the piano 6 hours a day is a very lonely process. I feel very lonely. So when I stop playing the piano because I want to give a break and have a coffee, there's someone talking in the radio, and this makes me company.
I can do background noise when I'm walking around my house, but see, radio is just like my car doesn't have a radio because it's an old school one. The radio is broken, so I always put in headphones and listen to something. I never really listen to talk radio. Like I find it very hard for me to listen to people talking. I guess it's because I do so much of it or I listened to so much. I used to listen to it all the time when I was a kid. My parents worked at radio stations, but what I would hear is the different broadcasters. I started noticing the way people talked in public compared to the way that people talked on radio, and it's a different sound. And it's much like music. You can have two people play the same exact piece of work, but they will not sound the same. It'll sound different. It'll sound a little bit little off, little different. But that's just like with radio broadcasters. You hear someone put, "You're listening to 93," and then they'll just go into this thing. And I'm like, that's not how they talk. Like I noticed when my parents put on a radio voice, I'm like, that's not how you talk. Like you're doing it in a more professional means.
They put the radio voice on. I have a radio program, weekly radio program called Brazilian Soul in Radio Cultura FM, which is the cultural radio, kind of the BBC for Brazil. And I try to talk naturally. I don't do this radio thing because I'm not trained to do that as well. I just want, you know, just to go as natural as I can.
That's when I first did the show, I had a family member go, "So what's your voice going to be on the radio or on the little podcast thing?" I was like, "It's just going to be my voice. If I'm doing it every day like I want to do it, and I'm going to do it for as long as I want to do it, you can't keep that up." Like that's why they have commercial breaks because eventually, after a while, but it's weird because some people that have done it for years, that's their voice now. Like
Yeah, they can.
that's what's
It's
insane.
like a monster. Yes, like a monster, like a Frankenstein that be transformed in the voice of the radio. It's terrible.
Do you think that if you're involved in something so much and it's good if you care about it, but if you're involved in something so much, no matter what it is, sometimes it can just consume you?
I think so. I was listening to an interview of an actor. I think it was Brad Pitt that said in that interview that he was so sick of his, character that he wanted to leave that character, and he didn't finish the film, the footage yet. So there was I think 15 days missing, and he was living with this character all the time, and he wanted to get liberated from that character, and he hated him. So I think in terms of representing something like actors, musicians, sometimes I get so tired of a piece of music that I don't want to listen to that anymore. I just played Beethoven Emperor Concerto last week with a great conductor, Isaac Karabchevsky. And it was an amazing concert. But to tell you the truth, after the concert finished, I didn't touch that concert anymore because I was a little bit over with that music.
Is there anything that I would say you just would stay away from, like you wouldn't go back. Not like that concert, but any type of form of music that you just wouldn't go into, wouldn't play piano with, wouldn't. Maybe you just are sick of something. I found myself I can't listen to like just talk radio in general. I'll listen to music or like songs in between or any of that type of stuff. But when it's just all talk for hours, man, I just find myself like, I don't want to hear this. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm not finding the right program.
No, I don't have anything against any kind of music, but I like good music. If you have a rap that is good, interesting, and keeps you listening to it for any reason, maybe the rhythm, maybe the words, or maybe the warmth of the voice of the guy who is, doing that kind of poetry, that's okay for me. The thing that I don't like is very simplistic things, things that are really basic and that don't excite me at all. Then I really cannot stand more than 5 seconds on it.
What okay, give me an example of like really basic.
Well, there is
Because compared to
a
what you do, just singing could be basic.
no, no. There is a form of music called in English it would be universal country in Brazil, and there is a piece by a guy who became very famous doing that, which is a very sexual, orientated piece of music that goes like, ai, se eu te pego, ai, se eu te pego, is very much, in the beginning of the prehistorical meaning of music. And that is something that I don't really, go crazy about it.
Yeah, repetitive stuff gets me. I can't do repetitive. I like a song that crafts out a story. Like in some sense, like country musics that are a bit of a ballad. Like I like that type of like my favorite one of my favorite all-time favorite songs is Johnny Be Good. Just because it's fast-paced, it's right on the money, and it tells a story. But when I hear something where it's just the same words over and over again throughout the whole song, I'm just like, all right, all right,
Well,
that's it for me.
it's okay for me. It's true.
Now, when it comes to radio broadcasting, have you ever thought about doing television, like actual be on television for like a full like hour and a half or something like that, like a news network or anything like that?
No, no, I'm very afraid of news because if I would be a broadcaster of news, it would be terrible because I cannot read well because of my eyes. The perception of my reading is very bad. Even today, that I can see 100% in
Hmm.
this eye is very slow, because I have my problem. The amblyopia is an atrophy in the optical nerve. So that the message that comes through my retina, my
Yeah,
retina,
right. No.
doesn't go directly to the brain. It takes some time. So I think it's a miracle when I see someone reading the news, and reading without bumping into some words and, going a little bit uncertain. I would be not good to do that. What I like to do in television is to do, proper documentaries about music in which I become a kind of a presenter. I play the piano. I go in the middle of the woods talking about the love of nature that Villa-Lobos had, the inspiration about nature. And we recreate this kind of cinematic experiences, so that the episodes are not really a boring documentary about musical education, but it's something that people can experience, not really only understanding that mentally, but understanding that through the experience um, of something that you live through.
Well, it's got to be somewhat easy for you only because you can explain because you're actually passionate about what you're explaining. Like, try talking about something that you're not interested in. It's just not, you don't have any words to really say. Like, it's very, very difficult. But when you're passionate about something and you really understand it to a level where a lot of people like you have a whole different experience because you can play a lot of this stuff. A lot of people like to listen to it, but they're missing out on a crucial feature of it, which is playing it. When you can get a better grasp or understanding from it, you can listen to it and understand it. I listen to music all the time. I understand it. But when I started like writing my own raps or writing my own lyrics or doing any of that type of stuff, I started having a better appreciation for a rap where I was like, okay, there's actually some like lyrical genius in this in a sense. You got to understand the actual words. But I feel like now, especially with a lot of kids today, when I'm listening to a song, I can't really hear what it's saying. Like it just seems like it's blending with the beat and you're missing like crucial, like you rewind it, like, what did he say? He's talking about something. Like, you know what I mean? There was a Russian rap song that was on TikTok all over the place. And it was like a bone, it was like this, I can't even repeat it, but someone transcribed the Russian and it's about something dirty, like really, really bad and dirty. But kids were TikToking it because they didn't know the lyrics. Or I'm
I
like,
see.
that's
Yeah.
what it starts to become an issue.
Yeah, it's true, it's true. And then you have also, the mixing of the language and the different ways of talking that goes through generation to generation. If you listen to someone 10 years old, for example, now they're going to speak English different than you, no? So the language changes as well. So you go through these experiences as well.
Well, as like a person that talks all the time, like myself, I get upset when someone cuts the words. Like my buddy just said, he said something like up down or something like that. He said like let down or something like that. I'm like, what does let down means? He said like I'll check it out when I get down. I'm like, what does that mean? You're cutting words that don't need to be cut down. And I'm like, that butchers the English language. That is a tool in itself.
But it's amazing. I think this came because of the internet and the way that we type in as well,
Texting.
texting things. And I think it's changing the way people are talking in all the languages.
That's so
And
scary.
this is scary. It's really scary. It's changing the way people are communicating with each other. Is making everything more reduced as an expression, and you know, but also the way that people go into this digital life and become a little bit internalized by it, I think can be very dangerous in terms of reducing the capacity of communicating personally with someone physically. you know I see girls and boys of 12 years old now, for example, that are amazingly fast in digital expression, but they are very, very underdeveloped in terms of going into the streets and ask for an ice cream, for example. They're very shy, they're very closed, and I have been seeing that
It's
throughout. Yeah,
easier to change your Facebook status to in a relationship rather than take your boombox outside of a girl's house and raise up the boombox and play her favorite song. Like
exactly.
that's what
You're right.
that see that's what scares me about the music translation, because I do like if I got to have an original artist create my intro, I would have done it. But this was just easier not to ask from people. I could just do something on my own, and without any music ability, I could just do that. But that doesn't just stop there; it translates. And when we see people that have shortened text messaging, imagine shortening music. People will be more than happy to let a machine do all of it for them and then play it out there. I mean, it's goalpost moving in a sense. I see that taking over in many different forms. And our attention spans are so shot. Like trying to get someone to sit down through an orchestra or something that isn't like my age, or someone that doesn't like appreciate it, just listens to newer rap or techno. I went to one techno concert and I'll never go again because it was the worst thing in the world. It was like everyone just wearing like light up gloves and spinning these little orbs in their hands, like they're like now that's a different life. It's not
It's a
me.
different place. Yeah, it's
But
not me as well. Yeah.
the music, the dude just hit a button and then he started running out into the crowd. I'm like, did he preset any, did he make these and preset them, or is he just a DJ? Like it's not like playing an actual concert. When you see someone mess up and they'll stop mid of the concert and go, I just messed up, guys, I'm so sorry about that. And then they'll be like, but I'll fix it. And then they'll play again. And I'm like, perfect. Like
It's good. Yeah, at least
mashups.
a wrong note. Yeah.
Have you ever heard mashups, song mashups before?
No, 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 no,
So
no.
like my
How
brother
does it go?
what my brother does, and like anybody else really out there that knows what a mashup is, they'll play a song, the band Green Day.
Yeah.
So they'll play a Green Day song, then halfway through the Green Day song they'll switch it to Electric Avenue.
Right.
Like
Ah.
and it's like you're like sitting there, what? Like what just happened? And they'll play like Weezer or something like that, like Beverly Hills or something. Then they'll switch it to some other song out there, American Idiot, whatever they want to say. It's mixing up two songs in one.
Yeah, it's like a collage that goes depending on what they want to express, using things that are already done.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
that's what I like, is that it's kind of like it's a distraction. It's like you see one hand and then another hand comes in. Like it's that keeping you on your toes, making sure you're still engaged as an audience, even though half the people are singing the song that you're playing. Then you switch it up on them, and then they know that song, and then they start playing it again. Like when my parents DJ, they'd always say, "I'm playing the same things that I know people will dance to because this is what they like." But then I'll throw in something I like, and I know that they're going to like, but they have to be already in to really get the new thing. And I'm like, that's very interesting.
Yes, it's like a trap in a way, but a trap for a good reason.
Yeah. Along with
No?
a surprise, like a birthday gift.
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly.
What would you say you appreciate more? Playing like because I get the broadcasting thing to transfer over only because you probably do music so much. You have to at some point just be a little bit kind of like, I need a break.
No, no, for me, music is like, the air of my life, to tell you the truth. It's something that I transform every emotion that I have into music. So for me, it's a pleasure. I'm very lucky because for me, it's not a work, It's like a hobby. It's like something that I really, really like enjoying doing it. And it's also is an infinite thing. It's a never-ending process of learning, music, because even if you live it, an eternal life, you're not going to be able to follow what's happening all around the world through music. So you have every day a possible surprise in front of you. This is what excites me.
It's amazing that when with your eye issues, is it alopecia? What did she say it was?
Amblyopia and
Amblyopia. Where did I get
the
alopecia from? I don't know where I
no,
got that
alopecia.
from.
You created that.
That's something completely different. But it's amazing you didn't take that in a bad way, because a lot of people would have just given up and been like, life kind of already screwed me at, especially nowadays. People would just be like, life already gave me a bad set of cards. But you took it and you were like, I'm not gonna let this hold me down. I'm gonna get into music.
But I think I was lucky because I didn't have the parameter of what it was to see normally. And I was always curious to know how was that, why the world is not made by measure to me, because I cannot read what is written in this outdoor, for example, no? And I was always very curious to know the normal way of seeing things, which I did when I was 42. I was in Boston, and Dr. Peter Raposa made the surgery. The surgery was a tremendous success. When I took the bandage out, I saw a cupboard in wood with the handles in gold. Then I saw a window, a brick wall, and then I saw my wife for the first time as she is. It was an emotion that I would never forget. And I spent 1 month in Boston because I needed to operate, first of all, my bad eye and then the better eye, the good eye. No? And I was 1 month in Boston between the two operations. And I was discovering everything, the vision of a grass, of a garden, the trees, the doors, the sea, the cushion of the bed of the hotel, my image in the mirror, the birds. Everything was so new that I am still shocked today. I'm not used to those colors and this quality of vision, this transparency of vision, because it's still very new to me, to tell you the truth.
I couldn't imagine it being that long and then seeing something new for like, it's like doing something new for the first time. Like whenever I do something new for the first time, I don't like anybody really, you don't really notice it. But when you really can take in after so long something that's a part of your everyday life that just changes all of a sudden over one thing.
Yeah, it is very emotional, very dear to me to remember those days in Boston and my life from that time to today, that completely changed, you know.
Did you look at
Uh,
yourself differently?
well, first of all, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I used to call my wife and say, Marianita, she's called Marianita. I said, Marianita, are you sure that I can go into the streets with this face? And I called the doctor. I called the doctor and I said, listen, Dr. Peter Raposa, it's amazing what I'm seeing, but I need to tell you that all the colors are wrong. Could you please give me a medicine for the colors to come back to what it was? And he said to me, no, no, Marcelo, these are the real colors that your retina were never able to see. And it's going to take maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, and you're going to get used to it. But I didn't, you know. Looking at you, for example, and at the room in our apartment is like to see a cartoon, you know. It's not what I understood about the world before. And I think I was very lucky because I didn't have the parameter of what it was normal before, you know. I was born like that, and then all of a sudden, it's a very happy ending story,
It's like
to
someone
tell you.
just upgraded you a little bit.
Exactly. A little bit, no, a lot.
A lot,
A
yeah.
lot. So, you know, it changed the way I see my relationship with people and everything. And also, you know, this was something that I'm telling you now. I'm talking to you about it. But before the operation, before the surgery, it was a taboo to me. I was not really happy to talk about it. You know, when Dr. Peter Raposa told me in Boston, because I have been through many other doctors in Spain, in Brazil, in the UK, and all the doctors used to say to me, I think it's very dangerous to operate you because you just have one eye, which can be successful. If we lose that eye, you are going to become completely blind. So nobody had the courage to operate me. And Dr. Peter Raposa told me, Marcello, I'm sure it's going to work okay. I'm sure it's going to be successful. You cannot live like this anymore. You don't know, but you cannot. Let me tell you, you are blind. Legally, you are blind in this country, in the United States. I felt so offended that I said to Marinita, let's go out of here. I don't want to listen to this doctor anymore. He called me blind because blind was my nickname when I was in the school. So I was really traumatized about every kind of detail, you know. And, for example, let me tell you something funny. Uh, I was maybe 12 years old or something, sat on the first row of the classroom, and there was a English teacher. And all of us, we used to read a paragraph, you know, standing up, reading the paragraph. So I used to count. We have 7 guys and girls at my left, 5 at my right. I used to count how many paragraphs would they read until they reached me. So I used to go like this, understanding word by word with
Oh
my
my
very poor
God.
vision. And I used to, you know, remember immediately, put that back in my memory, you know, and be able to stand up and read that perfectly. Because I was reading from my memory, not from what I was seeing, okay? But one day, a guy on my left read 2 paragraphs.
Ooh,
So I didn't have, you know,
yeah.
the paragraph in my memory. I stood up and I tried to read the paragraph, and it was a disaster. And of course, I was 1 year, you know, teased by all the guys in the school. They used to call me blind and all kinds of nicknames that you can imagine. So, you know, my life changed on that. And now I'm able to talk about that. But it was not like that before.
Man, I know I know it's bullying is like bad, but kids are rough, dude. I can't believe you went through that. That had to be the hardest thing to be able to memorize something like that. I would have gave up on school, man. I had ADHD and I couldn't even focus in anything. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't do any of that. I always got made fun of for that. I just didn't give school a chance.
You know, I learned how to cope with that in a very strange way. If people bull me today, or if someone goes against what I'm trying to do in a meeting, for example, and I know that the person is trying to make a pressure on me through bullying or through something to trying to be oppressive to me, I have this defensive thing, which is to take the funniest side of it and to make some fun of myself as well, in order to be able to make a maneuver in the end to try to put my point in, which is, something that I learned because of this process of my relationship with people when I was, with
Just
this
make a
limited vision.
symphony about them. You can immortalize them in song in the worst possible way.
It's true. It's true.
Well, Marcelo, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, man. Is there a place where people can find you? You have a Twitter handle? Do you have any websites, anything like that?
Yes, yes, yes. My website is www.marcelobratke.com. Marcelo is Marcelo. Bratke is Bratke. I have an Instagram, my website and everything. I am in all over the place, Wikipedia, many,
Concert
articles
halls?
throughout concert halls. Everything I do is there in digital, online,
Do you
many
have a
live
poster of you
things.
like hung up on the thing?
Well, physically in my home, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't
Do you
have a
have one any
poster.
in the concert halls?
I have, well, all concert halls have a poster
I would
about
sign it
me.
and stand by it so people will be like, "That's me. That's me."
And let me tell you, we're talking. You are in the U.S. One of my favorite concert halls um, is Carnegie Hall, and
Okay.
I passed sometimes at the Juilliard School of Music in New York, and I used to pass in front of Carnegie Hall, and I used to say to myself, "I'm never going to play here. It's never going to happen." And my Carnegie Hall debut was the first concert I gave after my surgery in Boston. And it was a sold out concert.
That's why you got the surgery.
Yeah, it was 4 months after my surgery, and it was a concert called Carnival Trilogy that was in the first page of the New York Times. And it was so the Carnegie Hall became a very special place in my emotional memory, if you know what I mean. Then I played many times there as well. Every time that I'm invited to play at Carnegie Hall is like a big event to me. Is a place that I respect because it makes part of my, story, if you
Yeah.
want.
Part of who you are too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll link it all in the description. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast.